Welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora on wakeupcalldt.com, your one-stop sports shop, and on mixlr.com/wakeupcalldt, as well as on Facebook Live, facebook.com/live-now-dt. He's got a busy morning, as you can imagine, so let's bring him right on. American Athletic Conference Commissioner Mike Aresco. Mike, how you doing today?
Oh, hi, Dan. Good morning. And normally I can spend a good half hour or more with you, but not this morning, I'm afraid. You know, there's a lot going on, and we've got a lot of issues that have to be addressed, but that's where we are. But thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And bringing in, just kind of what's going on this morning when it comes to, trying to obviously plan out fall sports and college football. What's on top of mind to you right now as we try to navigate through all this?
Well, we're talking, I'm talking to members of our conference. I've got some conference calls. We also have a student athlete advisory council call later on to talk to them about some of the, health and safety protocols and other things that we've been putting into place. Obviously, we're following developments. I think I've made it very clear that our conference would still like to try to play. We think that our medical advisory group, which is an outstanding one, is chaired by Dr. Greg Stewart of Tulane, really feels there's no medical reason at this point why we wouldn't play. In the counties where our teams are, the numbers of positive cases have been steadily declining, and we expect that to continue. No cases is good, of course, but we're trying to, gauge, what the situations are there. In addition, on our campuses with practices, everybody's practicing. We have 6 of our 11 schools in their latest round of testing have reported no positives. A few reported 1 or 2, and they've been isolated, quarantined. We have contact tracing in place. Our contact tracers will take the Johns Hopkins course. We've put in very strict medical protocols that we think will keep, and this is the key point, Dan, there is always risk, and you can't eliminate risk. You can reduce it to what you think is an acceptable level. But the issue for us is we think that the student athletes will be safer in a controlled environment where they are being tested regularly, where they're being given, health checkups, screenings, all sorts of other things, sanitary facilities, education, all the kinds of, and because they want to play, I think they'll be inclined to be really careful in terms of their contacts on the campus. And we think that would keep them safer than if they were just turned loose. And now all of a sudden, most want to play. If you opt out, you'll keep your scholarship, and yet we've had very few opt-outs. But the point is, if you aren't in that, I don't want to call it a bubble because it's not precisely a bubble, but if you're in that controlled environment, you're getting all the things I mentioned. But if you're not getting those, and you still have every opportunity, unfortunately, to contract the virus because there are many ways in which that can happen. But then you won't be tested. You won't necessarily know you have it. If you have mild symptoms, you might not necessarily do anything about that. Who knows what might happen? You could be spreading it to other students. If you're home, you may not be in an environment that is. Again, if you go to a gym, it might not be as sanitary as the one you have on campus. I mean, there are all sorts of things that frankly come into play. And I think Trevor Lawrence, made those points very articulately yesterday. And they're points that we've been trying to make. And that's, we know there are issues with this virus, and we've been screening for any heart conditions. But again, if somebody contracts the disease, not playing athletics, they're still going to have those potential issues, and it might not be detected. If students hadn't come into our campuses in June, many of them would not have had their, the virus detected because it can be asymptomatic in a lot of cases or have very mild symptoms. So again, those are the kinds of things I think you have to wrestle with. I'd like to see, a balanced media account of the pros and cons, of playing, and also if you don't play, how many kids who really wanted to play, they live for this would get depressed, and would that have an issue? Would that be an issue? We don't know. As usual, it's never that simple. It's never, well, if we shut it down, we're fine. There are always consequences to doing something like that, and I think we, in addition to, the human toll it takes with the disruption that could happen. So anyway, that's where we are. We still think that there's a chance that we could do this safely if trends continue. If not, we would shut it down for sure. And if our medical people told us it's not safe to proceed, they don't think that our kids are going to get the virus in competition. Obviously somebody might bring it in from the campus, but there will be testing. There will be all sorts of, health screenings and checks and other things. And if that's the case, we think we can proceed. But we'll see now what, the Big Ten and other conferences do, because obviously, that news has been percolating now for a few days.
Yeah, and obviously, we haven't seen really any direction from the NCAA overseeing this. It's kind of been each conference on their own, the Patriot League, the Atlantic 10, Ivy League saying, hey, listen, we're not going to play. The MAC just came out and they're going to move things to the spring. And now, it's a big question mark. The ACC came out with their schedule. The Big 12 came out with theirs. The SEC is going to play just in conference. How have you been handling this as a commissioner? And then secondly, you've made the statement of wanting to be a part of be a part of these discussions with the quote unquote Power Five. So what can you say about each conference making individual decisions with really no concrete overall decision from the NCAA as an umbrella? And then secondly, the American Athletic Conference, just the need and the desire to sit at the table to have these conversations instead of these conversations affecting you from the outside.
Well, that's a good point. And they can affect us from the outside. The NCAA, as you know, doesn't control college football, and there is no czar of college football. There is no commissioner of college football. There is no one, and the conferences are fragmented. I think you've seen that with the P5, even though they've been having a lot of conversations. They've made their own decisions, and I think that's just a reality of it. I don't think you can roll back the ocean, and the conferences like their independence, they like their autonomy, but they can work together from time to time. It would probably have been better if all the FBS conferences were trying to reach, a common, a solution to this problem, but that hasn't been the case. The A5, Autonomy 5, P5, of course, as they're known in the media, have a they have an exclusionary view. They don't include, the other conferences, in a lot of the key discussions. We've had discussions with them. We've had, joint meetings over the last, few weeks. So it's not as though we haven't had communication. I've had communication with individual commissioners in the P5, a good relationship with all of them. But I think we have something to contribute. The biggest issue, of course, Dan, is I've suspended the P6 campaign, which, we pursued pretty vigorously, but I suspended it in view of the pandemic. It didn't seem appropriate. The focus was on health and safety. But this points up the need for us to be in that room, because I think we could have made a real contribution to that debate, because we have outstanding medical advisors who may have differences of opinion with those of the P5. We don't know. We also, I think have a certain perspective from our conference, and we're like them. That's what you can't get away from. And this, no denigration of any other G5 conference, but we are like the P5, and we're the ones most like them, and everybody knows it. And for us to have the kind of schools we have, and the competition we play, and to not be in that room, and to have games postponed or canceled simply because we're not in the P5 is unfortunate. It's discouraging. We're not going to, discouraging is a term that's not going to ultimately, affect how we act. Difficulty is an excuse. History is never accepted. It's something Edward R. Murrow said. We've got a difficult path, difficult decisions to make. We'll deal with it. But I think we should be in that room. We're not in it. Maybe down the road we will be. I think this whole crisis points up the reason one of the key reasons why we want to be in the room. In the meantime, we've had to make our own decisions. We have the courage of our convictions. Ultimately, depending on the nature of some of the decisions with the A5, yes, there's an impact on us, no question. If the A5 shut it down, what do we do? That's a tough decision, obviously. And as you know, we would have to take what they're doing extremely seriously. And that's why, again, you want to have the kind of input that, we don't have right now. And that doesn't mean, again, we haven't had some conversations with them, but it's not the same as being in that room when, key decisions are being kicked around, no pun intended. So anyway, that's where we are, Dan. The conference has been meeting regularly. Our conference, our ADs, our presidents, we we'll meet again this week. We'll possibly have emergency meetings if we need to, which obviously, could happen fairly soon. Hard to say.
Last question, because I know you got a busy morning. How likely, honestly, feet to the fire, is there that there would be a college football season, and are we talking fall or are we talking spring at this point?
Well, if you read the tea leaves, the fall season certainly hangs in the balance right now. That's probably all I would say. I don't want to put any percentage on it. You don't know, and the players are pushing back. There's a group of players who are pushing back, and I think there's probably some rethinking of this within the conferences. But again, right now, certainly the trends don't look particularly optimistic, and we had been cautiously optimistic. But again, what the P5 do will have a profound influence on college football. As far as spring, never been a fan of that, Dan. I think there are all sorts of problems with it. You're going to ask student athletes to play 20 to 25 games, most closer to 25 in the space of 8 months or so, 8 or 9 months, with practices that would have to be probably 2 to 3 to 4 months in each case prior to each season. It's easier to talk about spring football, but even if you played eight games, you've got to practice in the winter indoors where the virus could spread more easily. If you don't have a vaccine, I don't know what changes from what's going on now. If you have a vaccine, obviously, potentially if it's widespread and you can get it, then things would be safer. But then you've got to practice all that time. You've got to play. Then what do you do? Shut it down for the summer? I think 2021 is then in jeopardy to some extent. And ask coaches. Coaches will tell you can't put the kids through this. I mean, think about that. You've got to be very judicious about what you do. And again, I wouldn't want to sacrifice the 21 season if we haven't played in fall 20. My point has been that's a last resort. There might be some way to do it. I don't think it would necessarily be easy. It's certainly no panacea. That's why I think you do everything you can to try to play in the fall and try to see where the virus is going and whether you can manage this safely. So that's where we are. I'm not a big fan of spring football, and then on the heels of it, the 2021 season. But we'll see where that goes. Maybe something that we're forced to look at as a last resort. I don't know yet.
Yeah, coming from Mike Oresco, American Athletic Conference Commissioner. Mike, I know that you got a busy morning, and so I want to thank you for spending a few minutes with us. I know there's a lot that people want to know, but I'm happy that we got to talk about a few things this morning, and my continued prayers and well wishes to you and to all the commissioners and ADs and presidents and coaches and players out there, as this is an unprecedented time, and you are probably getting a couple gray hairs from this moment, so I definitely do hope that things get better. I hope that there's good news to be had for everybody, and I definitely will keep you in my thoughts and my prayers as you get forward in all this.
Well, thanks, Dan. First of all, I normally, as you know, do spend a lot more time with you, and I wish I could, because your questions are always right on point. You obviously follow us closely. You follow college football closely, and appreciate your interest. I think the last thing I would say as we close, and I'd say to your listeners, is that we are trying to do things for the right reasons, and we're hoping that as a result we would reach good policy decisions. This is a matter of conscience. There's a lot of pressure on us to do the right thing, because health and safety has been paramount since we've closed down in March. Everybody talks about all the other issues, financial and otherwise, and it would be catastrophic, and it would have a human toll of all the people being furloughed and laid off and that kind of thing. But that's not the main thing. The main thing has been, if you can't do it in a healthy and safe way, reducing risk to an acceptable level, because as I said, you cannot eliminate risk in life in anything. But if you can do that, then you would potentially try to move forward. But it's always been about health and safety. We're trying to do the right thing. Whether we, ultimately what decisions we make, I don't know yet. But I hope in the long run they're the right ones for our student athletes and everybody connected to the game. But thank you, Dan. Really appreciate you having me. Sorry I couldn't spend more time.
No, we'll definitely catch up as things come out. Hopefully it'll be good news, and like you said, health and safety above all. So take care of yourself and stay safe, Mike, and I'll look forward to talking with you soon.
Thank you. You too, Dan. You and your family stay safe. All your listeners as well. Stay well. Thank you. Take care.
Take care. That coming from Mike Aresco here this morning on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. You can only imagine how crazy his job is right now. You can only imagine how much is on his plate and how many things he has to do. And for those of you that, hang out with Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora and listen and watch Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time, Mike is a mainstay. And I think that's, it's a huge blessing to have anybody be on the show once and bring a positivity to the table and be of the caliber of Mike Aresco, and to have Mike Aresco here on the show today, and we get to spend so much time together, and it says something to me about just working hard and believing in your dreams and knowing that you can achieve what you want. Because I really do believe that. I really do. I do believe you can achieve everything that you want. And, to say that a commissioner of, of anything is one of our mainstays. I mean, it's great to have anybody here on the show, but a commissioner that has to oversee their office, that has to oversee an entire conference and a bunch of institutions that comprise it. In the case of the American Athletic Conference, 12 different schools. And so, for Mike to be on the show once a year, let alone as often as he is a great testament to what we try to do here. And it's a great connection that I have with somebody that I truly respect and appreciate. So thank you to Mike for all that you do, Mr. Aresco. Appreciate it so very much. So with that being said, we'll take a step aside. We got some more show to talk about. Let's discuss college football. I want you to get involved. You heard what Mike Aresco had to say. And as a commissioner, it doesn't matter what conference you're in when it comes to trying to figure this out. The Ivy League said, shut it down. The Patriot League said, shut it down. The Atlantic 10, shut it down. The ACC, they come out first. Bam, here's our schedule. Then you start seeing the SEC, the Big 12, the Big 10, the Pac-12 going, we got some issues. We got some thoughts. And then the American Athletic Conference comes out and says, we're going to play our 8 conference games. We're not changing the schedule. We're going to play the 8 conference games on the days that they were set. But it's up to the discretion of all of our member schools to play more games. You're going to play the 8 inside of the American Athletic, and if one team wants to play 10, and one team wants to play 12, and one team wants to play 9, and one team wants to stay at 8, you could do that at your own discretion for the health and safety of yourself and your players and your community and your teachers and your staff. Every conference has had a different approach. Mike said, there is no czar. There is no there's no overlord of college football when it comes to the conferences. The Autonomous Five, by definition, are self-governing. The Pac-12, the Big 10, the Big 12, the ACC, and the SEC. But the NCAA has to make a decision. The NCAA has to come together and figure this out. What if we have 2 conferences playing and then a bunch of other conferences not? You know what I mean? And so, does that help? If the American Athletic really does have, like Mike said, not a lot, they're testing, they're not having a lot of positive cases. Anything that they've had has been minimal. The cities and the areas that they're in, they've been okay. So when push comes to shove, what if the American said, we're going to play, and nobody else did? Well, then that's a huge get for the American. And if the players stay safe and they can make this happen, well, now the American Athletic Conference is at the forefront. Now the American Athletic Conference is the only show in town. They're the only game to watch. So now more people are going to watch East Carolina, watch Houston, watch Navy, watch Memphis, and so on and so forth. So if they can do, and that's the thing, each conference may be doing things differently. They may be doing things similarly. And why punish the American if, let's just say, for argument's sake, their testing is on point, everything that they're doing is top-notch, and then one of the other conferences, it's not to that level? Then if this conference makes a decision, why should this conference suffer? There's a lot of questions that nobody ever wanted to ask. That's the world we live in right now. That's coronavirus in 2020. We're going to get through it. We're going to navigate it. We're going to figure this thing out. I have faith. I have belief in the power of the human spirit. And I have belief in the power of community and linking arms and working together. So, I know we'll figure this out. I just really honestly hope that if there is a safe and healthy, productive way to have these seasons, throw the money to the wind. These are kids. They want to play. Trevor and Justin, you take their season away, that's college football for them. That's slamming the door. The door got slammed on my cousin Sammy, who's a D1 women's lacrosse player at Albany for the Great Danes. They offered her season back. She said, I already got a job. That door slammed on her sister, and obviously my cousin Franny, who is coming off of injury and going to play lacrosse for CNS, have her next season up. And that got taken away from her. So now she's got 2 seasons instead of 3 seasons left. We have all felt this in some way, shape, or form. I don't care about... Listen, I don't want anybody to lose a job. I want everybody to make their money. I want all that stuff to happen. But don't ask me to not be me. And me is the health and safety of everybody above. That's my prayer every day, is that we're healthy, we're safe, we're happy, we're filled with God's gifts, and that each of us has an equal opportunity, that we do God's will, we stay well, and that our days are long, fun, and go by slowly. And what I mean by that is we appreciate all of our moments. Whether we're traveling, staying put, or both, that we have a beautiful, wonderful day full of all the goodness that we could possibly have. That's my prayer every day, way before coronavirus. So, I know Mike wants to play. I know a lot of these kids want to play. From what we're seeing, what I'm reading this morning, from them, from the mouth of the player. So, I hope we can find a way. And I hope the powers that be that care just about the money, I hope that their opinions get pushed to the side and we start seeing the people in the front like Mike Oresco that's like, listen, yeah, okay, we don't want to lose money. We don't want to have people furloughed. But this is about the kids, first and foremost. I really hope we can figure this out and get this together, because you should know this. Today is the only day that we have. Nothing else is promised. And to take an entire year away from these student athletes, that's asking a lot. So if we can find a way to do this in a healthy, safe environment, then let's figure it out. In God's